Alright. Well, shit. There we go. And voila. Alright, well, I'm on my way home for the weekend to do some family business. And in the meantime, I thought I would make a video blog about some things that have been on my mind recently. As most of you may or may not know, Father Nicholas Grunner, a well-known advocate of the Fatima apparitions, has passed away quite recently. I don't know the circumstances surrounding his death, but I do know it was of natural causes. It's shook up the traditional Catholic community universally. Personally, I haven't taken to my blog or anything to talk about the man himself, but I do have knowledge of him. I do have some kind of connection to him. I used to be an avid reader of Fatima Crusader and, a fan of the Fatima Center, way back when. However, back in 2013 sometime, he had some sort of altercation where at Fatima Center they hosted speakers who were openly fascist and or known Holocaust deniers. Father Nicholas Grunner himself spoke on the Holocaust denial, questioning the actual number of deaths who may or may not have died in the Holocaust. And this was very unfortunate, and I heard about some connections between Fatima Center and Stormfront and White Resistance, or the White Resistor, and I was very upset, and I decided I wasn't going to have anything to do with them anymore. So I vividly remember this because I threw away all my copies of Fatima Crusader. And all my stuff related to Fatima Center, I threw it all away. When it comes to Holocaust denial, I have literally no idea how in the world this became a thing in traditional Catholicism at all. I literally have no idea. And I don't know why we should venerate someone who is okay with these dicey, shady, edgy political positions, And, I said so on my private Facebook, and the amount of people who came out to defend this guy were just enormous, and some of the defenses were so erroneous, like, well, Catholics have always believed really weird conspiracy theories. I'm like, says who? You? Oh, well, it's just a theory, it has nothing to do with the spirituality. Politics and religious belief are irrevocably intertwined. I mean, how can something as influential as religion not influence your political stance at all, especially for a cleric? I just don't understand why these people feel the need to defend someone on these kind of topics. Here's my big question: Holocaust denial. Why? What is the purpose of Holocaust denial? What is the point? What are you hoping to accomplish by questioning the existence of one of the most extensively documented, researched genocides in modern history? What is the point? I mean, to answer that question, I've looked at recent events surrounding the Armenian genocide and the Turkish government, particularly Prime Minister Erdogan's abject refusal to have the Turkish government and the Turkish people accept responsibility for the genocide. If Angela Merkel, Prime Minister / Chancellor of Germany, on the anniversary of the Holocaust said that the German government and the German people would not be accepting responsibility for the Holocaust, there would be international uproar, economic sanctions, hell, threats of war from neighboring countries, civil unrest. It would be awful. Prime Minister Erdogan, absolutely rejects the reality of a genocide which resulted in the near extermination of a historical group of Catholic Christians living in the Levant region, in Outremer. Absolutely rejected that it ever happened, and, got off completely scot-free. The President of the United States doesn't acknowledge it. There's no reaction, no backlash, no nothing. Turkey is absolutely free to deny their crimes, while Germans today, none of whom still living had anything at all to do with the Holocaust, are expected to flagellate themselves over something they had absolutely zero part in. Now, I mean, Turkey is completely and utterly founded on the genocide of Christians. They were a nomadic. Modern-day Turks are descended from nomadic steppe peoples, like similar to the Mongols, who came out from the east, invaded the Anatolia, pushed out the Christian government that was already there, conquered it, and established a new country. This is established historical fact. This is easy. This is easily learnable. You can find all this out just by reading about any basic text on the history of Turkey. I mean, Turkey as a country, as a nation, didn't exist before the fall of the Ottoman Empire sometime in the 20th century. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, why else would you deny the Holocaust unless you want to absolve the people involved of any guilt surrounding it at all? And to which I ask the question of, what is the point of whitewashing, the Third Reich? What is the actual point? I mean, do you think that Nazism, National Socialism, has some kind of virtue to it? I mean, they were historical enemy. I mean, okay, let's examine it. Okay, let's examine National Socialism for a second here. Okay, they're socialists, so they don't believe in the ownership of private property. They believe in state control, indirect state control of industry and economics and business. National Socialism itself relies heavily on ultranationalism, which means putting, in the case of, Germany, the Germans over every single other person on the face of the planet, to the point of aggressive expansionism and, wars of conquest, in which ethnic cleansings are not just the norm, but stated policy. You have, the destruction of art, art that was deemed degenerate, which not only included stuff that even I would say is degenerate, but included, masterpieces of the Italian Renaissance, Catholic art, religious art, all of which was just discarded, to be destroyed, to be locked away, and, it's, so there you attacking Catholic culture right there. The oppression of Catholic churches, the imprisonment of clergy, the erosion of traditional German values. Yeah, I said it. The erosion of traditional German values. Okay, now, I know there's somewhere out there some Nazi out there, neo-Nazi, who's sitting in his basement in his fucking SS uniform that doesn't frickin' fit because he's a fat blob of flesh and fucking facial hair, that doesn't understand, has no basic grasp of history of the Nazi regime beyond, dissimulated propaganda, spread around by Nazi apologists. Germany is not Nazism. The history and culture of Germany is not Nazism. Okay? Germany has never, until the recent modern age, been a unified language or race of people. Ever. Okay? You have Bavarians, Saxons, Tyroleans. You have all of these groups of people that fall under the umbrella of Germans, but, the Bavarians, the Saxons, the Prussians, they all saw themselves as independent peoples with independent governments and independent cultures. Even the dialects, the way in which German is spoken is noticeably different, if you go from, say, Saxony to Bavaria. Northern and southern Germany are very different places, from a cultural standpoint. And any German will point this out to you. As an American, it may be hard to grasp, and which is what I notice a lot. A lot of, neo-Nazis are American. They're not actually German. So, I mean, it's just an observation. Just an observation. It's just, why? What is the purpose of Holocaust denial? What is the point? Why in the world do you want to try to exonerate a regime that couldn't even outlive its founder? What is the purpose? Okay, if you're, let me just try and, imagine the argument of a Nazi apologist. Okay, it's like, Hitler did the right thing for the German people. He fought for justice and other kinds of racial purity bullshit. Okay, let's look at a real hero of the German people. Let's look at a real German leader. Okay, Francis I of Austria, or Francis II, Holy Roman Emperor, reigned during the 19th, 18th century. Oversaw, the French Revolution and its attempt to topple the monarchies of Europe, okay? This guy was as staunchly conservative as you were going to get, okay? But he was not a raging moron, okay? He understood politics, he understood how to play the game, he understood, you know, human nature, he understood certain geopolitical realities, and didn't rail against them, screaming and whining like a little baby. He dealt with it and worked with what he had for the benefit of his people and what was left of Christendom. You know, Vienna played a leading role, the Austrians played a leading role in the opposition against Napoleon, who has been called by some the first nationalist / fascist. I've heard that said, and there's a lot of comparisons to be drawn from them. There is clout to that political theory. So, Francis, what does he do? Faced with Napoleon, you know, he fights him, yes, but at a point when his people are in danger, when he realizes he's, you know, there's nothing to come to this, he comes to terms with Napoleon. He tries to make peace with him, to save his people from the sure destruction that is going to be visited upon them, okay? To preserve them from the horrors of war. This is something, even though I don't like the man, he was an insane megalomaniac, I'll give him this credit, Kaiser Wilhelm II, you know, was smart enough to do. He was smart enough to say, okay, we need to stop. You know, I don't want my people to be, you know, invaded, to be ruined, to be scorned by the entire world. You know, I have to protect my people. You know, we're going to stop the war. At least Wilhelm and his government were smart enough to do that. Hitler was not so smart. And what did he get out of it? What good did it actually do him and the German people? What good did it really do? He died cowering in a bunker from Soviet and American forces with 2 bullets in his head. That's how he died. Ah, good job. Good job. Go Germany. Yeah, great leader. You know, didn't even have the balls to, you know, man the ramparts with his people like Constantine the Knights Pelagolos in the face of the Turks. Coward, just hid in a bunker and blew his brains out when he couldn't take it anymore. You know, hell, made him killed his mistress too, made her commit suicide with him because he didn't even have the balls to go out alone. Your beloved Adolf. Bullshit. He was a coward, a stunty, and a little pamphleteer who had no business in government. In a sane world where the Allies had not been brain dead enough to not just keep someone like Kaiser Karl, you know, who advocated for the end of the war from the time he was crowned and had no animosity toward the other European powers, rather than making him and the Austrians again, and the Habsburgs, rightful rulers of Germany, they replace it with the Republic in which a man like Adolf Hitler will easily rise to power because many Germans may have not liked what happened in World War I, but none of them were going to sign up with the communists, okay? They just weren't going to do it. No, these self-loathing, self-deprecating, you know, radical communists, they weren't going to sign up with them. They weren't going to do it. You know, going back to my original point, you know, I think I've made my point here. You know, Nazism, Holocaust denial, anything related to it in general is a destructive policy. Let's strip away the morals for a second. Let's strip away the religious aspect, assuming you're somebody who doesn't care about either of those things. Nazism was an abject, absolute, 100% failure. It could not sustain itself, it could not protect itself, it could not rise above itself. Let me piss you off real quick. The state of Israel has already outlived, you know, the state of Israel has outlived the Third Reich. You know, the Jews, you know, whenever you think of the Jews, they're having the last laugh right now. They've outlived you. They have survived what you went through. 7 nations tried to invade the state of Israel, and they fucked them up. They sent them straight back across the border with their tails between their legs. They have survived longer than you. I don't agree with some of the policies of the state of Israel. I am not a Zionist. I'm making a point here. For such a master race and for such a perfect system, you know, which you can't admit has flaws at all, you refuse to admit that, you know, you don't understand that your policies are self-destructive and detrimental because you're angry, blithering, raging, rabid conservatives who don't care about the facts, who don't care about doing the right thing. You just want to shoot people with state sanction and no responsibility. You know, you're cowards. You hide behind multiple Facebook accounts. You know, you come out, you know, you hide behind what you actually believe. You know, you dare to appropriate Catholic monarchical symbols for your disgusting ideology, which was opposed to all of them in the beginning, and you dare to act like you're some vanguard of tradition and some great protector of Europe. Fuck you. If Nazism had survived and conquered Europe, they would have slowly driven it into the ground. That is, assuming that other nationalist parties within this Third Reich didn't rise up and say, why should Scandinavians be ruled by Germans, you know, and decide they were gonna, you know, rise up against it. And eventually, until, you know,